Now that you have written a few examples with loops, is the right time to discuss a common practice. As we've mentioned before, the for loop is used when we know how many times we're going to need to loop, how many times we're going to repeat executing a particular set of statements. It is common practice when we know that we're going to execute a loop n times to start the initialization of the variable that will be counting the number of times we're executing the loop from 0 and set as limit number n strict. In more detail, take a look at the statement on the slide. It says I becomes equal to 0. This is the initialization statement. We are going to execute the loop, the statements in the body, as long as I is strictly less than n. And at every iteration, at the end of every iteration, we're going to increase the counter, I. Make sure that you do have I strictly less than n and not less or equal to n, because that will result into executing the loop once more, which is not what we want. It will execute n plus 1 times. Now, if we want to execute statements n times, it doesn't really matter what the beginning value will be and what the end value will be, right? We can start from 5 and end the loop at n plus 5. Why do we say that it is a common practice to start from 0 and go up to n? This mainly comes from the fact that strings are indexed starting from position 0. And as we will see, the same happens with arrays. So it is very handy to start the iteration from a variable at 0. Let's look at a short example to make this even more evident. Suppose that we want to print all the characters of a string, starting from the very first one going to the very last one. What do we need to do? How many times do we need to execute a print statement? We will execute the print statement as many times as the length of the string. How do we get the length of the string? There is a string method that will help us with that. So if we start counting from 0 and have as a strict limit the length of the string, as you can see on the code, then we can easily print the characters by using that same I variable. Because I will start having the index of the very first character, the 0, and it will have at the very end the index of the very last character, which will be s.length minus 1. It is therefore handy to start counting from 0 and going up to strictly less than the length.